Hi everyone, it's Dave from Doctors of Running. Today we're doing a spicy head-to-head battle between the new ASICS Sonicblast 2 and the New Balance SC Rebel version 1. We are going to have a guest appearance today with the ASICS Megablast. I can believe that there will be some comparisons and some questions that people may have comparing all three of these. So I want to get into it and talk about the similarities, the differences, and why one shoe might work for another person and why another one might work for someone else. And I think they're all great options, but you really got to know what you're looking for, I think, on these models, because specification wise, they're all pretty similar. The SC Rebel is a little bit lower, but they all kind of have similar DNA and aspects to them that I think overlap with each other somewhat. But there's enough of differences to choose one over the other. So we'll get into the specifications here. For the ASICS Sonicblast 2, we're looking at 46 millimeters of stack in the heel, 38 millimeters of stack in the forefoot for an 8 millimeter drop platform. This comes in at 242 grams or 8.5 ounces. This is using a dual midsole, so we're looking at Flight Foam Turbo Squared on the top layer of the midsole there, and on the bottom we're looking at Flight Foam Blast Max. And there is a trampoline pod in the forefoot here, similar to what they did in the Nova Blast, that has Flight Foam Turbo Squared as well. And this one is an interesting one. They updated a couple of different things. This is kind of meant to be the spicy Nova Blast trainer. It's a super trainer that can do workouts, but still daily train as well. And the heel is rounded a lot better than the first version. I think this shoe will work better for a lot more people this time around than the previous one. The plate stiffens things up. It's a P-Bax plate. You kind of have a gradual rocker initially with a sharp toe off at the very end. And so you kind of get this gradual roll to just like a sharp kind of catapulty type sensation. And we'll talk about the differences on the other ones later. But New Balance SC Rebel version 1. Now the SC Rebel version 1 comes in a little bit lower. It's 40 millimeters of stack in the heel, 36 millimeters of stack in the forefoot for a 4 millimeter drop platform. And this one comes in at 7.7 ounces or 218 grams. This one will retail at $200. I forgot to mention on the Sonicblast 2, this will retail at $190. So you have a $10 difference there between the two. This one is using the Infineon midsole. It's a TPEE-based midsole. The Flight Foam Turbo Squared is an ATPU-based midsole. And this one uses a carbon plate, and the way it's spooned out, you can actually see the plate just underneath the outsole there. So it's pretty aggressively spooned where it's deep in that midline groove and then forks out to that forefoot. Now, the actual geometry of the shoe isn't insane. It's a very gradual rocker, but because you can really feel that plate and rigidity, you get a very snappy forefoot sensation. And you can notice the rocker, even though it's not quite as dramatic as, say, the Sonicblast there. And in the ASICS Megablast, we're looking at 45 in the heel, 37 in the forefoot for a 8 millimeter drop platform. Also Flight Foam Turbo Squared, ATPU base, but more training side, not the super mushy, like bouncy racing foams. But this one comes in at 7.9 ounces or 224 grams. And this one is a little bit more of a balanced profile compared to the other two. This one is not plated. The rocker is much more gentle on both sides and is really just going to be that super trainer that can do a little bit of everything as well. And that's where all of these overlap, but they have different ways of doing it. And so I want to go into the fit and the experience of each of these shoes. And so the ASICS Sonicblast, similar to the previous version, I actually really liked the upper from version 1. And this one fits pretty similar. It's a little bit snug in the heel and midfoot with a little bit more of an open forefoot. I wouldn't say it's overly wide, but you have a good amount of forefoot volume that comes up. I felt like my feet had plenty of room to breathe. I just ran a run where it was 10K at like 620-ish pace, and it was 85 degrees outside with humidity, and it was fine. And my feet swelled a little bit. It wasn't a super long run, but it was enough to really kind of sweat and get my feet expanded a little bit, and it did fine. I didn't have any irritation there. Looking at the ride and the experience of this shoe, it's pretty tall being at 45, and it's not super wide, but surprisingly, it actually runs really stable. And there's a few different reasons for that. Some of it's the plate. The outsole is really thick and grips well. The upper locks down really well, and I had no issues with foot translation or slippage, even with like turning and doing all of that stuff. I didn't feel like my foot was moving off of the platform. So I was really happy with the stability on this model. And Flight Foam Turbo Squared as a foam is also just a little bit firmer. It's more of a resilient type of foam where you get a bounce out of it. And don't get me wrong, this is a very protective shoe, but it's not a soft, mushy shoe by any means. And the plate definitely stiffens that up even more so. I did have to figure out the geometry a little bit. I think the forefoot pod was something that was throwing me off at the very beginning. But once I figured out the geometry of the shoe, once you get the momentum going, this thing does not want to stop. You can feel it really bouncing you into that next step. And it was really appreciated for a steady tempo run like that. I think at easy paces, it's doable. It probably could be a little bit smoother. I think it has this little bit of the similar issue as the first model where it felt like a stiff shank across the platform, where it was just a little, almost a little too rigid. But even at easy paces, there's just a certain sweet spot that you can hit in the shoe where you're landing on your heel, but you're not landing so far back that you get this stiffness through the midfoot where it feels like it's slapping. If you can just land a little bit more forward and you figure that geometry out and it just works with your stride pattern, then it actually feels quite nice. And you just get a quick little roll. You're on a stiff platform here, and then you get a nice little bounce and faster roll through the forefoot. And I mentioned it earlier, the forefoot's very gradual, but then it has a sharper rounding up front. So you get this like gentle roll that goes into a quicker and snappier bounce through the forefoot. So it's a fun ride. It definitely is. I think it's a solid option on the market right now. And at 8.5 ounces, they brought the weight down too. I think it's a lot more competitive now from a weight standpoint for a shoe that can daily train, long run, and do workouts as well. I think it's an awesome option out there. You just got to figure out the geometry a little bit. And if it works for you, it's a good option. And I would throw it in the stable neutral category. When we look at the New Balance SC Rebel version 1, this one's a little bit different. I will say with the Sonicblast 2, just to add a little bit more, this one feels like a super trainer that can be a training companion. And the reason why I say that is the SC Rebel version 1 almost feels like a super shoe that is a training companion. It feels like what a lot of the super shoes on the market feel like, but a training friendly version of them. Whereas the Sonicblast 2 definitely feels like a super trainer. It feels higher than most of the super shoes on the market, and it is. So the Infineon midsole in the SC Rebel version 1 is different. It's definitely softer and more compliant, but still gives you a good bounce out of it as well. I will say from a snappiness standpoint, I feel like I get a little bit more of a catapulty feeling out of the Sonicblast 2 than I do the SC Rebel version 1. However, the Infineon midsole's different. It's a lot softer, and the plate's a lot more noticeable from the midfoot forward in the Rebel version 1. So this is a shoe where you land on that heel, you can really feel it compress and absorb your load. But as you get into the midfoot, all of a sudden you've got a really stiff platform, but it transitions really well. It just drops right into it, and then you get this snappy forefoot sensation coming off of that forefoot. And for me, I really like that sensation. It feels like they almost made this shoe for me, where I get the plush heel, but I get the really responsive forefoot. That doesn't feel like there's a whole lot wasted there, and it feels like I could just spring off of it. And the fit on the SC Rebel version 1, it's phantom fit, and it does fit a little bit more snug. That's the type of fit that they do in their racing models. It's a little bit more snug. It fits a little bit lower volume. It's not quite as wide through the forefoot. So if you have width considerations or volume considerations, you might have to look for another model. But I didn't have any issues. I've had multiple double-digit runs in this shoe at this point, and I've really enjoyed it so far. It's just one of those shoes where it's a little bit more streamlined. The upper is still training friendly. It's not so streamlined that it's like racing only. It definitely, you can see it in the heel collar here. There's still a little bit of plushness, and they have the upper fit around. The tongue's moderately padded, does just enough to prevent biting from the laces. I haven't had any issues there, but it definitely fits a little bit more snug. This feels like a performance-oriented training shoe, and that's what it is. And it's at 7.7 ounces, so it's even lighter. And this is one of those shoes where I feel like if you really wanted to race a marathon or a half marathon or even 10K, shoot, like I think you could totally do it. And it's responsive and snappy. And I've had a lot of fun in the SC Rebel version 1. So a little bit different there, where that one feels a little bit more like the traditional super shoe, but it just feels a little bit more training friendly, a lot more training friendly than most super shoes, where the Sonicblast is definitely higher up and it feels like it. And so you just got to ask yourself what you're looking for, because like 40 millimeters of stack is still a lot. People do super trainers or super shoes for races all the time for marathon. It's not like 40 is low, especially with the good foam and lightweight. But if you want a little bit more under there, from a stability standpoint, ironically, even though the Sonicblast 2 is higher up, I feel like it runs a little bit more stable. They both feel decently stable. Like the SC Rebel version 1 from the midfoot forward is very stable, but the heel is definitely neutral. Whereas in the Sonicblast, this whole platform feels stable, neutral, start to finish. It's just a matter of whether or not the geometry works for you. When we look at the ASICS Megablast, now this is kind of the interesting one. I feel like this is probably less involved in this conversation. It feels a little bit like a different shoe compared to the other two. This one's a much more gradual rounding in the heel and the forefoot. It's just one slab of the Flight Foam Turbo squared. The upper is more performance oriented, not quite as wide, a little bit lower volume. You have the serrated laces, to kind of give you a little bit more of an aggressive feel. But this shoe feels like a lightweight. It's a 7.9 ounces, so definitely lighter for the stack height. And this one definitely still feels decently stable. Now, compared to, like, let's say the previous version of the Superblast 2 at the time, when this had released, this definitely feels a little bit more squirrely. The Flight Foam Turbo Squared ATPU, it's a firmer based ATPU, but it still has a little bit more compliance than, let's say, the Turbo Plus from before. So definitely a fun shoe, balanced shoe, great shoe for long runs. I feel like this has been my long run killer forever since it came out. So I'm a huge fan of the Megablast. It's a much more balanced geometry, but not quite as aggressive for snappier riding things. So if you're trying to go fast, I would probably choose one of the other two shoes. They feel stiffer in the forefoot. They feel snappy and bouncy and lively, where this is just more of a balanced profile that can go up tempo. And it can go up tempo to marathon and half marathon pace quite nicely, and you just use it for that. You just don't really go faster, for me personally, in the Megablast. And so great training and long run shoe, but very neutral. It has a lot of elements to make it a stable, neutral type of shoe, but the foam has a little bit more compliance to it, where in the SC Rebel version 1, the forefoot's very stable, heel's neutral, so it kind of offsets and becomes stable neutral, where the Sonicblast has just so much rigidity all across the board. You have some sidewalls integrated, not the hugest, but you have some sole flaring in the plate, the traction, the upper lockdown. Everything about this is surprisingly stable when you run in it. So for stability considerations, out of the three, I probably would go with the Sonicblast 2. If it's just forefoot strictly for stability, SC Rebel version 1. And if you just want a neutral balanced rocker, I'd probably go with the Megablast. So you just got to take a look at the shoes and kind of what you're looking for and what you want to get out of them. But I think they're all great options on the market. If I was pinned to a wall and I was forced to choose one, it would be tough. I think I would go with the SC Rebel version 1 personally. I think the geometry just works better for me. I think I like the lighter weight, the snappy forefoot, the softer heel. Still doesn't feel unstable. I can do daily efforts in it. I can do up-tempo efforts in it. And I think the shoe just agrees with me. Thankfully, I haven't had any issues with the lower volume and slightly more narrow width. I wouldn't say it's narrow, it's just not wide, but the lower volume can make it feel that way. But I get along with this shoe really, really well. Not that I don't with the Sonicblast 2. I think if I was just forced to choose one, I'd probably go with the SC Rebel version 1. But for those that want something a little bit taller up and they like having that snappy, bouncy forefoot, while still having a more rigid platform all around, you have the Sonicblast version 2. For balance, just long run rhythmic efforts, I'd go with the Megablast. So I like all three of these shoes, so if you have all three, please leave a comment, see what you think. But yeah, that's our comparison review between the ASICS Sonicblast 2, the SC Rebel version 1, and the ASICS Megablast.